What's up, Meta Nerds? In this video, we are going to take on the Herculean task of trying to figure out the total loss of clone troopers during the 3 years of the Clone Wars. This is going to specifically focus on ground forces, clone troopers that died in combat on-world, not lost as crew members in Republic fleets. We will use 9 of the largest battles of the Clone Wars, and to have realistic stats to draw from, I wanted to take 4 battles from World War II, each with drastically diverse conditions, to see what percentage of a real fighting force was either killed in action or wounded. The Battle of Iwo Jima had 110,000 US troops, 6,821 were killed, and 19,217 were wounded. In the Battle of the Bulge, US troops were 700,000, 19,000 killed, and 54,000 wounded. D-Day had 156,000 Allied troops, 4,414 of which were killed, along with 5,586 wounded. And last, the Battle of Berlin had Soviet and Polish troops at 2,500,000, 81,116 were killed, and 280,251 were wounded. These real-world stats give us a total troop sample size of 3,466,000, with the total killed being 111,351, and total injured at 359,054. This means about 3% are killed, and 10% get injured in major battles. And so we will apply these numbers to the major battles of the Clone Wars, and then we will make some generalizations to try and figure out the entire clone ground troop losses. Starting at the very beginning, there were 192,000 clone troopers on-world for the first Battle of Geonosis. So if we use our World War II stats, we would expect 5,760 killed, and 19,200 injured. Star Wars guidebooks tell us that approximately 20,000 clones were injured, while only providing the vague line that thousands of clone troopers were killed. But I think that because of how close the injured numbers are, we can be confident in the predictive ability of our World War II major battle averages. Also important to consider, there were about 10,000 clone commandos on Geonosis, of which 4,982 were killed. This is a ridiculously high casualty rate, almost half, but I think for sure we can consider this an outlier that shouldn't be generalized to the entirety of the Clone Wars, since they were tasked with entering the Geonosian citadels in order to destroy the droid factories, which forced them into narrow dark corridors that were literally crawling with a unique and violent enemy. Also, the swarming tactics and sound wave based weapons would have negated the effects of their armor. 7 weeks later we have the Battle of Christophsis, and we can see the troop strength with the 13th Army, 327th Star Corps, 501st Legion, Alpha Squad, Bravo Squad, and Slick's Platoon. If we add all these troop amounts up, we get 193,590, a similar number to Geonosis. This would give us 5,807 killed, and 19,359 injured, meaning that we've already filled up 2/3 of a Haven-class medical station's back-to-tanks in just the first couple months of fighting. A few months later we have the Battle of Ryloth, which had the 501st Legion, Ghost Company, and Lightning Squadron, for a total of 9,371, or 281 killed, and 937 injured. Though importantly, this does not take into account the likely thousands of Twi'lek allied casualties. In 21 BBY, we go back to the bug world for the second Battle of Geonosis, which included the 41st Elite Corps, 212th Attack Battalion, 501st Legion, and some squads of flame troopers, giving us 46,665 troops on the ground, with 1,400 dead, and 4,666 injured. Though many aspects of this operation were a disaster, so I wouldn't be surprised if those numbers were higher. Later that year we have the Battle of Kamino, with the Advanced Recon Commandos, Advanced Recon Force Troopers, and the 501st, a total of 9,288, or 279 killed, and 929 wounded. But this is a really good place to make the point that naval battles should be covered in another video, as the number I gave does not account for the tons of losses that were happening with each capital ship that was destroyed. At the nightmare that was Umbara, we had ARF troopers, the 501st, and the 212th Attack Battalion, which gave us a fighting force of 9,827, of which 295 would have died, along with 983 injured. Again, specifics here may be higher, but that is why our World War II averages included devastating battles like D-Day, and some of these would have been friendly fire, due to Pong Krell's treachery. I want to include the invasion of Coruscant during the Battle of Coruscant, because even though it was from the 2003 Clone Wars TV show, it did contain a ton of amazing events, and we have the numbers for it, so why not? This is a long one, but we got the 501st, 3rd Systems Army, 212th Attack Battalion, a platoon of Marines, Shock Troopers, Senate Guards, and even a squad of Red Guards, along with 2 squads of Clone Commandos, and 2 squads of ARC Troopers. This gives us a grand total of 304,856, and remember that doesn't even include the fleets in orbit that were conducting most of the fighting, but this number would give us an estimate of 9,146 killed, and 30,486 injured. Which makes sense that this would be the largest amount of casualties we cover on this list. And now we arrive at the last 2 battles. The Battle of Kashyyyk had Delta, Omega, Bogey, and Triton squads, the 41st Elite Corps, 91st Reconnaissance Corps, 501st Legion, and a Clone Marine Sniper Platoon, giving us 85,320, not including the Wookiees, or 2,560 killed in action, and 8,532 injured. The final battle I want to include is the Battle of Utapau, which had the 501st, the 3rd Systems Army, and a platoon each of Shadow Troopers and Engineers. This gives us 304,200 troops in total, 9,126 killed, and 30,420 wounded. These are definitely not all of the battles of the Clone Wars, but of these 9 major battles, we get a better idea of the amount of casualties for the troops that went through the very worst of what the CIS had to offer. And when you total it all up, you get 39,636 killed, and 115,513 wounded. What we can do to try and figure out the total Republic losses over the length of the Clone Wars is to divide this number by 9, getting the average killed and wounded, and then multiply that by the number of military actions in the Clone Wars. There is an incredibly long list on Wikipedia that I put in the description down below, but it includes some things like just diplomatic talks, or when a couple of Jedi went to a location, so just counting up the battles, invasions, attacks, or defenses, we get a total of 49 military actions. Multiplied by our average, gives us 215,796 clone troops killed, and 628,904 wounded. Given that the number of US troops killed in World War II is estimated to be around 407,316, and the total military force was around 16 million, the average World War II killed in action percentage was 2.5% of the armed forces. And since we have a canon figure for the total amount of clone troopers ordered during the Clone Wars at 6.2 million, 1.2 to start, and 5 million over the next couple of years, we know that 215,796 would be 3.5% of this fighting force. But this was probably a bit high considering that we focused on the 9 biggest battles, and so if we went with the World War II average of 2.5%, it would give us 155,000 clone troopers killed. People listening that know their history immediately understand that this is ridiculously low. Far, far too low for a galactic scale war. Hell, the Russians believe that over 478,000 were killed during the Battle of Stalingrad alone. But again, our math is as accurate as it can be, as the stats from Geonosis say that only 20,000 were injured, matching what our averages would predict, and the 6.2 million clone army total is a canon official stat. Of course, we had to do some averaging and speculating in some areas, so the numbers I gave aren't perfect, but I find it very interesting that our stats are so close to those killed or wounded in World War II, especially since so much of Star Wars tech and tactics are based on World War II combat. So that's it for the breakdown, and the only behind the scenes fact is that I didn't include the Battle of Jabeam, since we only have a battalion of clones listed, or 576 troops, but the casualties are listed at 10,000 plus. I felt like including this would have just confused people even more. And I hope this will spark some amazing conversations in the comments down below. I know a lot of serious history buffs subscribe to the channel, and I want to know what you think of the World War II comparison, and see some theories for why the clone army was so small, and what size you think it should have been. And keep an eye out for a video I'm working on about the organization of the Republic military, and how ridiculously hard it would be for the sector armies to try and control dozens of planets with so little troops. But that's it for the total number of clone ground troops killed during the Clone Wars. But most important of all, remember, Star Wars doesn't have to make sense. It's just fun to do a deep dig sometimes, and the Force will be with you, always.